Hello and welcome to Honest Faith Conversations. As always, I am your co-host, Miguel Covarrubias.
And I am Kathy Covarrubias. And today we're going to talk about This Is Us, Season 1, Episode 2, The Big Three.
Well, great big welcome to you guys. Thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate all of you that do. I'm not sure if we have to give a spoiler warning for this one because it's been out for a while now.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it by now, you're probably not going to watch it. So
yeah, it's a good time to go and binge watch shows because this is that in between time where the summer shows really haven't started off yet, and
the fall shows are now on the whole season's on Hulu or Netflix.
Yeah, and they're doing their season finales if they haven't already. So go and watch This Is Us, and then come back and start with our first episode rundown, which was a few weeks ago. And then you can come to this one, because this is episode 2. Speaking of which, for those of you who have watched This Is Us, and you're feeling that big hole that you need to fill This Is Us with, tell your friends about our show and be like, hey, you can listen to them talk about the second episode. So, hey, there you go.
So now we're going to do a little summary review of the second episode. So, essentially now, we're going to try our best, since we have watched the whole entire season, we're going to try our best to just stick with just up until the end of the episode. So, Kevin has quit his job, and now he is kind of having second thoughts about quitting his job. He goes to Kate to see if, what she thinks. Kate's just like, well, you wanted to quit. You should still quit. And then he ropes her into going to this big Hollywood party. She doesn't have a good time. Then she gets drunk. Then she ends up having a good time because she's a little drunk. And then Randall, who's across the country, he is still kind of coping with the fact that his biological father is now living with him, and he's just really stressed out about that. Right? That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I don't know if I should have you do summaries anymore, though.
Well, if you watched the episode, then you know what I'm talking about.
Could have just done, he struggled with the decision he made in episode 1. Kate struggled with her same decisions and letting loose. And Randall struggled with having William in his house, and Jack and Rebecca struggle with marriage stuff.
That's really over summarizing it.
Well, that's what we're doing, is summarizing.
Okay, whatever.
But I still think it was a very strong episode. It didn't suffer from what many shows do, which is that kind of sophomore slump where, you have that good pilot episode and then you kind of try to figure out what you're doing with the second episode. This one it ran hard, and I think that all the actors were on their game for the entire time.
Yeah, so. I think so.
Anyway, what I wanted to talk about with this episode in particular is what I wanted to kind of touch on, which we've been doing quite a bit recently with Walking Dead, with Legion is what we did last week. I was trying to think of what we did last week. We did Legion with Doctor Strange, with a lot of media recently is that kind of struggling with personal demons, and I wrote it as personal dragons here because of the metaphors that I'm going with later with the chivalry imagery.
But you can't see it because it's in our notes, but it's there.
If you go and support us on Patreon, that's one of our perks, is you can see our notes before we actually... but since we don't have any patrons yet, I haven't uploaded any of those yet. So we'll start doing that. But it's been a common thread throughout our podcast recently, and as well as in our personal lives, there is, for me, is really conquering that fear of other people, that anxiety that I have with things. And especially this week, I wrote a very controversial blog post, which, I knew was controversial before I posted it. It was really hard for me to just put myself out there and just to hit publish. It was just, it was the fear that people were going to not appreciate it, that everybody was going to hate it, that it was just going to be bad. And so that was one of my things was dealing with that personal struggle, with that personal demon of anxiety there. And I did it anyway, and it's been one of my most read blog posts, nearing 3,000 reads, which is incredible to me. I am absolutely blown away by it, and it's just. Well, yeah, and anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about here, was that each of the characters is kind of struggling with their own thing, and the courage that it takes to actually go through with it, to actually, really let loose, as it were. And we see this in the big three. We also see this in Jack and Rebecca. Well, more so in Rebecca, because Rebecca was the one that kind of confronted it and, forced Jack to confront it in his own life. And so we'll talk about that here in a second.
Well, her and Miguel.
Her and Miguel, yeah. Miguel did kind of force the issue a little bit too, but Miguel's was more checking out Rebecca than actually forcing Jack to do something. Yeah, and so it was the courage to face your problems, I think, was the overarching theme of this episode. Was just knowing what you have to do and going after it. Kevin was the one that had the biggest struggle throughout the entire episode. Was not really facing up to really becoming himself, really becoming the true self that he was. Is that wanting to be that artist rather than doing what is it? The
Manny.
Yeah, the Manny. No, I'm talking about what the station runner said in this episode was just the morphine drift of life, just doing it, sucking it up, and just doing it.
Oh yeah, when he's talking about how he's the producer is saying, I'm retiring in 2 years. This is, all this is a money grab for me, and then I'm going to retire, and then after 2 years, you can do whatever you want, but you're just going to have to suck it up for the next 2 years, and near the end, with the conversation that he had with his brother and sister, I think he finally realized, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to sell my soul for this. It's not worth it. It's not worth me being distressed and distraught for 2 years just so I can be happy after that.
Yeah, we had. That's each of the characters had their own inciting incident to find that point where they did. Kind of go after that conversation, that tough conversation they needed to have with another person. For Beth, it was William coming home late, and her trying to struggle with that. Is he back on drugs? Is he in my house and dealing with drugs?
Well, and she was just assuming, she just automatically assumed that that's what he was doing.
And Randall, who kind of jumps to his defense there, which I love that. I love the moment that Beth has with William at that moment, is that you can see that Beth really loves Randall, and that she admires Randall for all that he does, and that he really appreciates him, and and you can see it on William's face, is that he wishes he knew his son like that. Yeah,
and I think too that since she knows him enough, she's the fact that she knows that by telling William that I want you to leave, you've overstayed your welcome, I want you to leave so then my husband can be normal again. By her saying that, she knows deep down inside that that's going to kill Randall. If he ever found out that she had that conversation with William and was the reason why William left.
Yeah.
But luckily Randall walks in just in the nick of time to kind of save the whole situation. And it was all because of a stupid cat.
Which, yeah, and Beth realizes how silly it was at the end there. And so, anyway, let's talk about those conversations that they had. With Jack and Rebecca, I really admire the courage that it took Rebecca to stand up and say, "Look, I've had a bad day, and the thing is, you're really just not pulling your weight here." And it's tough to do that. It's really tough to kind of step out of yourself and to really confront the issue head on. And in that situation, I mean, I can never see myself doing that. There are times when I just don't, I don't want to come home and deal with distress that's at home and stuff like that. But I still do. But I really don't. I don't get Jack's reasoning in that. I don't understand why he's just going to the bar and drinking and stuff like this in this moment. I think that's probably the weakest part of this episode for me is I don't know his motivation.
Yeah, except for, at that point in time, the culture was for, men to just go out to the bar after work and have a few beers.
This is like early 80s, late 70s. Wait, no, this would be mid-80s. I'm not quite sure that that's really the culture that was mid-80s. I don't know. I was only a very small child at the time, so... and I think that this conversation, I think, forced Jack to realize what he was doing, forced him to kind of change something in himself. And there, that conversation at the end where he's, trying to make up for it is apologizing and saying, from now on, I'm going to be a 12. I think that's, a personal turning point for himself.
Yeah. And, nope, I'm not going to jump ahead. I'm not going to jump ahead of the episode. Never mind.
No, what were you going to say?
No, because I'm sticking to, I'm only going to go up to episode 2. I'm not going to talk about anything else, just in case we have a listener out there who's going episode by episode.
Well, I guess we haven't, we have done that podcast on the season finale, but, okay. All right. We talked about Beth and William's conversation there, and I really think that for them, both of them, it was a turning point, and I think also for Randall. I know that Randall had his defining moment kind of early on in episode 1, where he shows up at William's house and is just yelling at him, and William's just kind of like, okay, I deserve this, just get it out. So, yeah, and I think that. This conversation, I think that was that turning point for Beth with William, and it's just a good moment, and I really I love that moment.
Yeah.
Then you have Kevin with the.
Well, didn't we already talk about Kevin and the network?
A little bit, but I think that with him, he had those two moments. We didn't get to see the last one, the turning point moment for him. We saw it, kind of where he was getting that inciting incident from. We saw it with his siblings, but at the very beginning with his agent, where she's telling him, she's like, "You're not going to work in film or movies again because you're nothing. You were nothing when I found you." And
that's not the reason why. It's because he's like contractually obligated. So if he breaks his contract, he's not allowed to.
He's not allowed to, but that's what she's saying, is that that's going to bomb his career forever. That, those 2 years that he's not working is going to, he's not going to be relevant at all.
Okay, so look at Kesha. Like, she's still in the news, and she's like, because she's trying to fight her contract. Like, the reason why she hasn't been able to make her own music is because that she was in that contract with, Jerkface Man.
Yeah.
But she's still able to at least stay somewhat relevant. She's still able to work with some individuals, even if it's just alongside it. So I understand his fear of possibly not being able to get a job again. However, actors tend to overreact to things. So I think if he just took a moment just to sit down and just think about it, I think he would have realized that way. Oh no, there's other options. I have other options.
And there was, that moment with his siblings, and this is something for me that I really wish that my family talked more. I really wish that I could talk to my siblings like this. That I'm having a tough day, and I need some advice. That I could go to my siblings and. I mean, I know that they're there for me, and I know that I probably could call them, but that's just not the way my family really operates. It's that, I wish that I could just call them and have those conversations that he did with Randall, and that they had that unifying moment where Randall was like, you never call me. You're kind of you were a jerk to me growing up. You know, you were a bad brother, and you know, he's still angry about some things, but he's still going to be supportive. Mm-hmm. And
because that's Randall.
Yeah,
because Randall supports everybody and anybody.
Mm-hmm. I think that's why I Randall's my character. That's, you know, who I, you know, most track with is Randall, and you know, well, we'll get to that in the future episodes. Mm-hmm. I really wanted to bring around this this whole idea of this episode to Miguel de Cervantes' work, The Man of La Mancha. You know, as Don Quixote. Is really, I think that what happens with us human beings is that we romanticize our problems, is that we make them to be bigger than ourselves, is that we make them into these gigantic dragons that we can't really face. And, you know, we need those inciting incidents to kind of say, you know, okay, we're going to go do something about this now. Is that, and really ultimately when you face down, when you confront these issues, is that they're so much smaller than you made them out to be in your head. And I bring up Don Quixote because in it, you know, the whole story is about this man who reads this fantasy and this romance literature, and you know, fancies himself a knight errant, and you know, and ends up going off on this quest to save the world, and really it's just, you know, all in his mind. It's all, you know, kind of making this stuff up, and you know, and it's meant to be this work of nihilism, maybe, but that I think this is ultimately a picture, is that no matter how big our problems may be or how small they may be, is that we should still do them because it's our own life. It's what we're facing. And just like Don Quixote, even if we're tilting at windmills, we should be doing it anyway. Is going out there and doing it, is facing you know, confronting our dragons, whatever they may be. And I like how they actually do it, and they will show the fallout from that, you know, in future episodes. But we're not going to go there because we're staying in episode 2. So. It's something that we watched right before we rewatched this episode. Really kind of made me think about this episode in that light. Is the next topic that I want to talk about for this episode is being you and fitting in. Is that recently I've been hearing a lot of people just kind of say, just be you. And, you know, not in the whole, you know, oh, just be you kind of sense, but just, you know, let yourself be you. And I think so many times in our culture where we don't let ourselves be ourselves, that we don't confront issues because we want to hide who we are from the world. Mm-hmm. And so we watched, one of the things that we watch and we enjoy is this BuzzFeed ongoing series called Wine Mom.
Yeah, and if and when, you know, she no longer is working for BuzzFeed, because as you know, everybody either is fired or quits BuzzFeed. I really hope she does her own like spin-off thing.
Yeah. And if she listens to our podcast, that would be great too. Yeah. I'd like to have her on as a guest. That'd be great.
Yeah, you could text her and let her know.
Hey, be on our podcast. But I think that ultimately there's a difficulty in opening yourself up and being honest, and I think that's kind of what, you know, I'm getting at with the personal dragons, is just that opening up of yourself, is that difficulty of is letting yourself be vulnerable enough, because you know that those times before that you've learned in your life that when you open yourself up, when you let yourself be the realist you that you can be, that people really haven't reacted greatly to that. And mostly, I can almost guarantee that those times that you've done that, it's been in high school. Because high school sucks.
I wouldn't say just high school.
Well, it's not just high school. And it's mostly, you know, like those formative years, is that growing up, is that when you are the realist you, when you open up to people that you like the things that you like, and they're like, oh, that sucks, or whatever it is, and saying that your opinions don't matter, you know, that reinforces in your mind that you should hide that part of yourself. When, you know, in in reality, that's not the way that things should be. You really should be, just being you, being the best you that you can be, and owning up to that. And I think that's what each of these characters is going through. And Kate more so is more of the season arc, and it's begun in episode 1, and here it continues in episode 2. With Toby, there's some things that will open up later on, but with Kevin here, it's kind of really facing that head on because of this whole career trajectory that he's going on. He does face a little bit more of this a little bit later on, but it's those moments, and I think that's kind of what makes this show so great. Is those people that they're portraying real people doing these things is really getting to the heart of who they are as human beings, rather than just characters that they're portraying. There was something that I had said early on while we were watching it, was that I really love the chemistry that Milo and Mandy Moore have on screen. Is that they have, they really portray a married couple. Mm-hmm. Is that that you could believe that they're a married couple, that they really kind of have that chemistry with each other. It's really tough for actors to get to that point, to get to the point where they're really portraying somebody who's real to them, who's a real character to them.
Yeah, but I think that they're good enough actors to where it's fine.
Yeah. So it's, and I think that this is a much larger topic than just this show. But this is obviously kind of what we do on our podcast, is talk about bringing little pieces from these fantasy worlds and bringing them out into the real world. Here is shedding the masks is what I wrote down, is that it's really tough to really get rid of those things that stand in our way, because most oftentimes it's ourselves. We are the ones that stand in our own way. We are the ones that criticize ourselves or say that we're not good enough before we've even done anything. And with
even at work, there's some goals. Of course, with work, everybody has goals that they're supposed to meet. And some of these goals are totally within my realm of capability. They're not hard. All I have to do is just say one sentence. Just ask one question. And there's sometimes I'll be doing my job and I just I'm okay, I need to say it. I need to remember to say it. I need to remember to say it. And then all of a sudden the call's over and I'm oh, never mind. And no one is stopping me. That's all me. I don't know. It's just my own fault.
Well, this is something that I think that we all struggle with as human beings. And this is, I think, why the theme of this episode is so complex, yet so simple at the same time, is that, we all struggle with being ourselves, with being our true selves and getting rid of those masks. For me, that's a lot of what my anxiety centers around, and especially at work, is that, it centers around being myself, because so often within the church, I was told that being myself was not good enough, was that I needed to be better than myself, that I needed to be, this holy, set apart being, this minister that's been set on this pedestal, and that I need to be that, and that my life isn't a fishbowl, so I need to be that at all times. And it was no wonder it was kind of life shattering for me to kind of go through that transition to being not a minister anymore.
Yeah, because you had that mask on for so long that it started to become a part of you, and then all of a sudden it was just taken away from you, and now you're just oh wait, now you can see my face. Hold on, I wasn't ready for this.
And just that's why these things that I do now, that they're so important to me. They're so, things that I enjoy doing, like doing the podcast and writing my blog and, some of the other things. Granted, the whole liturgical reading thing was kind of more of a something that I enjoyed doing, but since I ran out of time, that was one of the things that I got cut from my life. So, if I maybe will go back into that once I have figured out a new kind of ritual for my life at some point, once I get out of training in my new job.
Yeah, when we have a more normal schedule.
People, say some bad things about routine, but I gotta say, there's a lot of comfort in routine, is doing things that normally every single day. And so, anyway, that's one of the things that, in shedding our masks is tough, is that we need those things that do comfort us, is that we do need those things that tell us that it's okay to be who we are. And I think that goes along with everyone. And I mean, even if you yourself are a podcaster, that putting these things out there, it's difficult. It's difficult to put yourself out there, and it's difficult, especially if you get no feedback or bad feedback or anything, even if you get so much praise, you get a lot of praise from people saying, oh, this is a great show, or I really enjoyed listening to you, or whatever. That one little bad piece of feedback will stick with you. That one bad comment, or that one out of so many people who have commented, or that one little thing, or not that lack thereof, kind of sticks with you, and it eats at you sometimes. And the trick is, and this is what a friend of mine recently, because I was having a little tough day on Friday when my blog was starting to pick up and going past the 2,000 readers mark, was that, I had a few bad comments come back to me. And I said, it's really tough for me not to take that personally. And she said to me, the point is not to take any of it personally. The point is just to put it out there. It is not, your art doesn't belong to you at that point. When you put it out, when you publish it, when you take it, when you release it out into the world, it's not yours anymore. It's got a life of its own.
Well, and you can't please everybody, and you shouldn't live your life thinking that you can please everybody, because that's part of, Randall's problem, is he's out there to try to please everybody.
Yeah. And
it runs him into the ground every single time.
Yeah, and I mean, that's something that I'm working with my therapist on, but it's also something that all of us, and I think this is not just a Miguel problem. I think this is a entire world problem. Like I said last week, is that every human being could stand to use some therapy and to do some work there. So anyway, I think we'll move on to our controversial issues segment here. One of my things that I have as a controversial issue here is marriage, and I didn't mean that our marriage is controversial, but I mean that all marriages have this issue where you don't reveal kind of your true selves, because you really. Well, and this is something that, married people can tell you, that oftentimes they're afraid of offending the other. And you have that moment at the beginning of this episode there with Beth and Randall, where Beth is afraid to bring up the topic with Randall, is that, okay, how long is William going to be staying? Mm-hmm. And what kind of a person is he? And I'm a little bit afraid of him. And, you can tell that there was that bit of it with Rebecca at the beginning, there before Jack goes off to work.
Yeah, she clearly wanted to say something, but... Well, and I think part of the reason why Rebecca didn't want to say something at that point in time is she knew that he needed to go to work. She knew that the kids needed to go to school. Like, they needed to, get to the bus on time. So it was not the appropriate time to bring it up. Yeah.
But, that's why I said I admired the courage that she had later in the episode, bringing it up. And, this is something that I see a lot of married people doing, is that they do the same thing with the rest of the world, is that they close off. Is, they don't open up about their problems. They don't open up about themselves. And they kind of close it away. They feel like they need to be a better person because the world views married people in a weird way.
Yeah, like a unit. And I think that I think that some people have a warped perception as to what marriage should be like. And I feel like this is one of the reasons why younger people, like when you marry young, they do have a higher percentage of divorce rates than people who wait later in life. And I think part of that is because at that point in time, I mean, obviously, I'm not speaking for everybody, because there's always going to be those people who, are high school sweethearts and are always meant to be, like, obviously. But there's that other group of people who their brains are still developing. I mean, our brains are continuing to develop until the age of, 25?
Yep.
So a lot of people tend to want to jump into marriage too quickly because they have this romanticized idea of what marriage should be. Like, it's supposed to be blissful and nobody argues and you're supposed to be lovey-dovey all the time. And then all of a sudden you realize, oh wait, this isn't it. And then, that can cause some disappointment,
Yeah, to say the least. I think that even though we were both in our 20s when we got married, that there was still, I was already living on my own at that point in time, is that, I was kind of set in my ways and doing that stuff. And so our first year together, and this is a little bit of admittance there, is that, our first year together was rough. We fought a lot.
First year of marriage.
Yeah, first year of marriage and living together was rough because, I was set in my ways and you were kind of a little bit in yours and, trying to find ways to live with each other.
Well, I think my problem, I don't think that was my problem. I think my problem was, because I've always lived with people.
Yeah.
I've always lived with people. I've always been, an additional person dwelling in a house. It's never been, my own residence. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Before I moved in with Miguel, I was living with my sister, because I pretty much didn't have anywhere else to go. I wasn't, kicked out or anything, but she let me live with her through college. And before that, I was living with my parents, so I didn't ever really, have my own, thing. And then, I move out with you, and not only did I have to all of a sudden, kind of coordinate my own, oh, wait, this is my place now. But then I also was oh, wait, but this is kind of also his place, but he's already established everything already. So then I guess I'm just a dweller again. So, I think that was my problem. I had more of an idea of, I wanted it to be more of a partnership, but you had already, settled into the place, and I didn't have a lot of stuff, and all of the stuff there was yours.
Yeah, well, I mean, we had... And I think it was important that our first year was rough. I think it was important that we went through that because, it taught us much more about each other. And I mean, even now we have fights, because, all married couples do. And I think that's one of the problems that, you can go through and watch any YouTube video on YouTube couples that, made it or didn't. And, what's funny is that they made it how long? Because, marriages are ongoing.
Yeah. They did it.
They did it. They made it to a year. Yay. But that's the controversial thing about marriage is that sometimes, everybody fights and nobody really wants to do that in front of their kids because, we grew up with that ourselves. We knew how rough it was for the kids to listen to it. But the truth is everyone fights, especially if you're two passionate people, even if you're two artists living together.
Yeah, I still don't like fighting in front of Peter, even though he's one. I don't like it because because
you have those flashbacks to when you were a kid and when it happened, in front of you.
Yeah, so I only imagine he could be possibly feeling the same way.
Well, yeah, but I think it also teaches him that, how to have a conversation with somebody else. Is that, granted, sometimes we don't have good conversations when we're arguing, but...
I was about to say, arguing and conversations in my book are two separate things. They're not one and the same.
No, I know, but that's what I'm saying is that, it teaches him that married couples argue, and that's okay. And it's okay that people argue. It's okay when people get heated. It's okay when emotions get involved. Because like I said, like we were talking about earlier, it's okay to be you. And it's okay that whatever that looks like, for whatever that shape it's going to be, that it's okay. And I think that's what the most controversial thing about all of this is that it's okay to be okay. It's okay to be you. It's okay to shed those masks. It's okay to argue. It's okay to feel whatever it is that you're feeling.
I think that's what it really boils down to. It's like, it's okay to feel the way that you're feeling.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what it boils down to. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the next controversial issue that was in here was the vices. Of course, this was only sort of brought up because of William and the conversation that he had with the kids.
I can't believe he was almost going to tell him where he got his cocaine. Like,
well, I think he was going to be joking about it. So I think he was just going to say something really silly, like, I got this from, I don't know, Oscar the Grouch or something. That
no, because then then they're like, what, Oscar the Grouch? Like, deals,
is a drug dealer?
He deals cocaine?
Yeah.
No, I don't think, he's never been around kids before. So there's a total, I think he was going to actually say, like, oh, well, there is a guy named Frank that lived down the street. Like,
well, he could have been honest with them about it, but I think that the bigger issue that he brought up in this was that everyone has their vices.
Yeah.
He did bring up his own father, which I think that there are continuity errors later on. I think we talk about that. We'll talk about that in a future episode. Mm-hmm. I think vices are a controversial issue, especially with everything that's going on in our country. And I think that, it's true that everyone does have their vice. Everyone has their one thing that they retreat to when, their masks were seen through, when they were transparent and it didn't go well. I think
both of ours are food.
Food, yeah.
Yeah, like me, it's
a
not
major vice.
Me, I don't go to like drink right away. Like, I usually, like, if I'm having something to drink, like alcoholic wise, I'm usually eating something as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, when I have a bad day, I'm like, ugh, I'm just gonna go get a tub of ice cream. I don't eat the whole tub though, but then for the next couple of days, while I'm still like trying to recover from feeling bad, I will still have the ice cream at home.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's kind of what ended us up in our Weight Watchers meetings was, the fact that we use food as a vice. There is a reason why they call it comfort food. Mm-hmm. That does bring comfort.
But not really, because then, like, it's like comfort while I'm eating it. But then as soon as I'm done eating it, I'm just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, well, it gives you brief comfort for that moment that you're eating it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so then you feel bad for eating the comfort food.
Yes, and then you eat some more because now you're feeling bad again.
It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
It ends up sending you to Weight Watchers meetings, and not like.
And that's not a bad thing. Like, Weight Watchers is a great program. Like we are not endorsed by Weight Watchers whatsoever. However,
it works.
It works. Like, we both lost a significant amount of weight in a very healthy point of time.
Yeah, and I really think that the meetings that Kate and Toby are going to, I think those are more Overeaters Anonymous meetings. Mm-hmm. Than actual things like Weight Watchers. But those things provide support for those people. I mean, those things are designed for you to open up, to be your truest self at. And I think that in this episode, Kate didn't feel like she was safe to be her truest self because of the other character who threw her Wendy's out the window, and the girl who has body dysmorphic disorder or whatever.
I like how she's like, "You are just a litterer." Like, that's what that makes you.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when she was confessing that. I'm like, why you just wasted $10 by throwing your Wendy's out the window? I like how you're
more upset about her wasting $10. Me, I'm like, yeah, Captain Planet would have been angry. He would have thrown that back at you.
I'm like, that wasted $10. You should have, given it to somebody who was hungry. So, yeah, anyway, there's where my mind was at in this episode. Anyway, we're running out of time here, so now it's time to close it up. We wanted to say thank you so much for all of our listeners, and come find us. Come find us on YouTube, on YouTube, on Spreaker, on Facebook, on Twitter. Come find us.
On the website.
TheHonestFaith.com,
which is also where you can also find the blog where Miguel has gotten a lot of reads, which is really, really cool. That's also very controversial, but it's a good read. So I think you should go check it out. Me as his wife telling y'all to read it.
And we're doing something special right now, is that we would really love for you guys to comment to us. If you had listened to an episode that spoke to you, if you had listened to an episode that you wanted to add something to, if we got a fact wrong or something and you wanted to say, oh wait, actually, don't be mansplaining about it, just contact us back with a little thing saying, oh yeah,
I don't think they could be mansplaining to you, honey.
They could. But we would love for you to send us your audio file or to call us with a voicemail. Here's the number for that: 720-372-3879. That is a Google voicemail box, and so you were just going to get the Google subscriber is not available, but that's us. So just leave a voicemail, and I'm wanting to do here in the future, if we get enough, a listener conversation podcast where we converse with you guys. We take your points and we talk to them and kind of talk about them, and we'll talk here, maybe take an entire episode and devote it to that, is to talk about those things that you guys brought up. Even if it's just to say, hi, I'm from this and this podcast. You should listen to our podcast too. We'll talk about your podcast maybe too. And we'll maybe listen to your podcast and be like, oh yeah, you should listen to them because they talk about this particular thing that we talked about in this past episode, like Legion or whatever. As I'll listen to it and we'll talk about that. So anyway, we invite you to do that, and come find us on social media. And anyway, as always, come and join the conversation.
Bye.